I want to start out today by telling you a little story about a young man. A young man in his teens, early to mid teens. This young man grew up in a very turbulent home. Parents were often arguing, nothing really stable about that home. And he found himself often wondering, why was he born into this family? Why me? Why why couldn't I have grown up in a happy family? And often he would find himself in his mid-teens going. He had found a place of refuge, that where he could sit on a log and he would be able to sit there and contemplate. And, to be honest, many times he felt sorry for himself, wondering why could he not be born into a better family, or why was he treated the way he was treated? He was often ignored, taken advantage of, and, this was his place of solace where he could kind of gather his thoughts and gather the strength he needed to go on. I'm going to pause here a little bit. One night he found himself standing on a bridge outside of the railing with his hands behind him, kind of leaning out over the bridge. He was looking down at the water, and the river wasn't that deep, but it was high enough that the fall would have most likely killed him. Would have most likely done what his thoughts were as he was standing there outside that railing. There was a lot of turmoil going on the inside. There was a voice that kept saying, "You know what? You could just end it all. The pain that you feel, the turmoil that you feel on the inside would all go away. You never have to worry about it again." And then there was this other voice that kept saying, "Yeah, but you're young. You'll have your whole life ahead of you. You can work through this, and you can leave this situation. You don't have to stay in this situation." And back and forth, back and forth. And the water looked so inviting to this young man. And he stood there for, he didn't know, he didn't remember how long. It was a long time. And finally, the voice that kept saying, "You can make it, you can leave this situation, you don't always have to stay in a situation like this. You can start over in a new life if you want to." And so, with tears streaming down his face, he stepped over the railing and sat down on the inside on this bridge and wept and wept and wept. Slowly he got up and started walking home, knowing that the choice that he made and how close he came to making a bad choice. And then he woke up. Now, this young man was me. I had this dream. Now, as most of you know, I went through, as a teenager, I went through a lot of turmoil. I went through a lot of anger. I grew up in a home that was anything but stable, but I'm not going to go into that. And the reason I want to share this with you is that, I actually woke up in a cold sweat. How real this dream was that I had. And at that time we were living in Honduras. When I say we, my family. I was about 18 years old. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, but I made that choice in my dream, and it became a reality. that I don't have to stay in this kind of a situation. Now, it took a hell of a lot of work throughout the rest of my life to work through all of this that I went through. So why am I sharing all of this today? I don't know if you know this or not, but June is Men's Mental Health Month. And whether you're aware of it or not, a lot of, well, yes, a lot. 100 men per day commit suicide as of 1920 or 2022, the last statistics that were taken, and it's actually a little bit more than that today. So that makes, that's a lot of men that commit suicide. The count of men that commit suicide is so much higher than women. And, I can understand that. I know that. And if you listen to any of my previous videos, I shared how I worked with, worked or volunteered in the psychiatric unit at our local hospital. I saw patients there that tried to commit suicide, that tried to slit their wrists. They were on meds. They were just tired of living. And also, I think in the same video, I also shared how I started and facilitated groups for people that were facing addictions. And, some people, men and women both, young men and women, when they face certain addictions, they come to the point where they think life is no longer worth living. And I especially remember this one young man, that he was an alcoholic. And if you know anything about alcoholics, they go on binges, and then they stop, and they swear that they'll never touch alcohol again. And unless they really do the inner work, unless they really get to the point where they say, I don't care what, I'm going to work through this, and they work with somebody. It's almost impossible to do it by yourself. But if you work with someone and have someone else walk alongside you, you can make it. But anyway, I got this call about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he goes, I'm gonna kill myself. I got a gun in my hand. I was just quiet. I didn't say anything. And now remember, I've worked with this young man for close to a year, and he had gotten to the point where alcohol, he lost his wife, he lost custody of his child, he lost his work, his job. He hardly had a place to stay because he was always moving around, and he had gotten to the point where he just felt like he was going to end it all. And thank God I didn't say anything. I just let him talk, and he eventually talked himself out of shooting himself. But it's hard to explain unless you've been in that situation. Now, thank God I didn't go through with this. That what I experienced was a dream, but I know this dream was given to me because, I'll be honest, I had contemplated suicide so many times. I was just like, it's just not worth it. Why the hell do I have to go through all of this? And I might as well just end it all. And I don't know if you've ever been in that situation or not. I hope not. But if you have, please reach out to someone and have them work with you and have them walk alongside you. There's so many ways that we can work through this. And also, you might get tired of me mentioning this, but we are about to close the Emotional Alchemist, which is a 6-week workshop of working with people. Maybe you face suicide. Maybe you face issues that you feel you just cannot work through. That's what we're here for. So reach out. I beg you, if you're going through things like this, and just remember, men, we don't have to make that choice to end it all. There is help, there is hope, and there is so much to live for once we get on the other side of that. Be blessed.